Oh, that both of us too this morning.
I figured this.
Yeah.
I figure bar stools will bother me.
Because he's so tall.
Okay, memberships. I'd like to list it as not enough. There are 303,795 bikes registered in Wisconsin in 2012. And when ABATE of Wisconsin goes to Madison for Lobby Day, we represent all 300,000 of them. But unfortunately, all 300,000 aren't members of ABATE. So if you have some non-members here, please consider joining us. We're giving away a membership today. Free, so raise your hand and the guys will give you a ticket to get in that membership raffle. Lifetime members, we have 424. Associate, 59. Junior Patriots, 39. And also another bonus this year for joining us, new members. They're giving a $10 gift certificate towards the summer Hummer. And that goes on all year, it's endless, according to Marlene here. So do that, and if you sign up a new member that's 18 or 17, 19, they're not 21, they can save that $10 coupon until they are 21 and come to the Summer Hummer. So let's get out there, sign up some new members, let's grow this organization huge. Treasury report, Lisa, or Cheryl?
We have 4-8 treasury for $3.53 right now.
Okay, a lot of that went to getting ready for this monies we had to pay out in advance to get ready for this event today. Next on the agenda, Lobby Day is February 28th, 2013. There'll be buses throughout the state heading down there. See the January and February newsletter for the routes. Region 4A bus, I changed the pickup point from Cruise Inn in Wausau. We're now going to be leaving from the Hog Creek Saloon on the corner of Highway 153 and County O at 1:30 a.m. and Shooters at Clover at 9:20 a.m. And like I say, check the newsletters for other dates and time. We know a date, February 28th, but times. So please like to see all at Lobby Day. It's an awesome event. We meet with every assembly person, every senator, all the way up to the governor, who's also a rider with us. So that's where we get our work done. That's probably the most important day on ABATE of Wisconsin's calendar, is Lobby Day. I think you want to say a few words about Lobby Day right away?
I didn't know it was coming up that fast. All right. About 2 years ago, ABATE of Wisconsin Board of Directors talked about adopting motorcycle trauma best practice as something that they would get behind, an issue that they would get behind. How many of you know what motorcycle trauma best practice is? So just a handful, and that's why I wanted to explain it to you. Last year at Lobby Day, we put the motorcycle trauma best practice in the packets, and there were a couple of people around who knew what it was and would go and would talk to the legislators. But truly, it's something that we should all try to understand. It is a rights issue. How many of you believe that you have a right to the best care possible if you were to go down on your motorcycle? And I better see every hand raised for that one. Don't we have a right to good care? There are problems, there are issues within our system that can be fixed. So motorcycle trauma identified 4 different areas where we can make a difference, where we can strengthen the response if somebody were to go down. 2 of them are related to the motorcyclists themselves getting trained. One is that rider educators will get trained in how to properly respond. The second one is that motorcyclists will continue to get trained. And I would say that there's probably a third to half of the people in this room that have taken accident scene management training and could help their brother or sister if they were the ones to go down. My challenge is to the other 50%, you need to do the same for your friends. This is something that we're all in together. I guarantee you that if you don't give a shit, they won't give a shit. The people who are not motorcyclists. We have 2 areas that need to be improved within the EMS system. One of them is the dispatch. When you dial 911 and you say that you're at a motorcycle crash, guess what the first word is that they say? In their head, if not on the phone. It's, oh, shit. we scare them. They're nervous about motorcyclists. They don't know exactly what to do or how to handle this. And your dispatchers don't have anything specific related to motorcycle trauma, other than that they'll put Flight for Life on standby, and if the motorcyclist isn't breathing, helmet or not, they're going to flip to a card that says, do CPR. The results of CPR on a trauma victim is about a 1% chance of survival. And then you start wondering, no wonder we have a hard time surviving a motorcycle trauma. Doing a head tilt chin lift and pressing on the person's chest just makes sure they're dead. So it's important that they have specific protocols for motorcyclists, and that we all know what those are as well. Now the same thing is happening in the EMS. The EMS is not taught anything specific about motorcycle trauma. You would expect that all EMTs would know helmet removal at the very least, and that is not a mandatory skill. It's an optional skill that some EMTs know and some don't. And many of them who learned it are rusty at it and aren't real sure what to do. So I think that the EMTs themselves need to learn about motorcycles, how to handle the motorcycle, how to handle the motorcyclist. So we have a class that we teach to the EMS as well. Now, so there are 4 different elements: rider coaches, motorcyclists, 911 dispatch, and EMTs. And all of those things, all areas have room for improvement. If we would strengthen all of them, our chances of having a better outcome would be, obvious. So I've got best practice over here, those 4 elements and explanations of what they are and what the problems are on the table. Feel free to come and get those and educate yourself. But as time goes on, I'm hoping that all of you could just spit those 4 different areas out and be able to explain it to anyone that asks you. Any questions? Awesome. Thanks.
Thank you, Vicki. Share the Road training is coming up, and we're always looking for more instructors. Last November we had 121 around the state, and now we're down to 75. So we need to add instructors. Please, if you're interested in attending a training session, see the January newsletter. Marlene has it in there, and Patrick Kane is our lead instructor. He has in there the dates of all the places, and you can find your district lead instructor and find out where it's going to be. District 4 here, we're going to be February 23rd. We're going to be meeting at Country Air, and that's from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. with a lunch break in there. So please come check us out. We've taught thousands and thousands of kids around the state of Wisconsin. That's part of the AB 55. They're required to have 30 minutes of motorcycle awareness. And we have an excellent program here. They don't have to use our program. We're kind of partial. We think it's the best one out there. So, but we do need instructors. So please, if you feel interested in checking us out, join us in one of our training sessions. You don't have to go to the one in your district. If that date doesn't work out for you, find one in another district that does work out for you and make arrangements to attend that. News and notes. We lost one of our brothers here October 2nd. Dan Fritzy Frenzel was killed October 2nd down by Galesville on Highway 54. A semi took over on top of him. That motions hearing will be February 12th. As of now, I talked to his widow this morning, and she's thinking that is going to change also. But that'll be in Whitehall at the Trumbull County Courthouse, February 12th. She does not have a time for that yet, so I'll keep you posted on that as more becomes available. Updates. Back in October, Pat and Cheryl Sheridan, area rep and their treasurer from 4A were down at the state meeting, and they noticed that in the MRF reports that we were not a sustaining member. Region 4A wasn't, so we kind of put a drive together and to raise the money for it. We didn't want to take it out of our treasury, so through different donations. And today Randy Berger from the Rib Mountain Riders gave me the last $50 we needed. of the Red Mountain Riders Treasury, who put us over the top, so now Region 4A will be an MRF sustaining member. So, you want to join the group. Thank you. Next up, products. If you notice, the girls from products, Stephanie and Dawn, are back set up in the corner. They have lots of super deals, some closeouts, some new items. So get your new stuff back there. Be ready for the summer Hummer. Get your some Valentine's gifts right there. ABATE products. They're in fashion year-round. Events coming up. There's more events in the newsletter. These are the ones just in our region, kind of. Board of Directors meeting is tomorrow at the Holiday Inn over on Central Avenue, about 3-4 blocks that way. Barstool racing, January 19th at Rock Dam, and the help of 4C. Our own String Bean, I think he's the flag man always running it. Bonnie and String Bean, they always help out with that, so thank them and help out some Barstool racing, ice racing over there. It's always a good time. February 8th through the 10th, officer training at the Hotel Mead in Wisconsin Rapids. There'll be a life membership raffle. So any of my area people want to give me some money, I'll put your name into a membership raffle. They're already 3 for 10, Marlene, was that the prices on them? For the membership life membership raffle. $5 a piece or 3 for 10. So if anybody's interested in getting in on that, get your regional rep or officer that's attending, give them some money. And so they can possibly be a life member. February 16th, the 38th annual swap meet up at Dale's Weston Lanes from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. They're giving us a table there for ABATE for memberships. So my area people, I'll need some volunteers to man that table. I'm going to do the share the road. I'm going to show it on the computer during the day and have some other things going on. So if you guys got some time that day, please volunteer to help us out there. It's getting dry. February 23rd, District 4 and 5 road training at Country Air. I mentioned that already. March 9th, the District 4 Chili Cook-Off, Pool and Dart Tournament. It's at the Bakerville Sports Bar. $10 entry fee, $100 pay or 100% payback. Hoagie is the reigning champion in darts, so we need somebody to challenge him. He says he's a little rusty this year. So anybody's pretty sharp on darts, come on up and challenge Hoagie. Lisa Martin's coming in to challenge on the pool tournament. She told me she's a pool shark, so Lisa's going to be there. So if you want to shoot against Lisa, and I think you said Heidi was going to come too, she's another pool shark. So should be interesting. Lisa's also volunteered to be our chili cook-off judge. So it should be a fun day. May 18th through the 20th, land warming at ABATE Acres. And I know Pogie always needs lots of help. Pogie, any special projects coming up today we need lots of help, or that you know of right now?
We got a couple in the works, but nothing's set in stone yet. We're still kind of hashing them out. It's early yet. But watch your newsletter. I'll be writing a column in there to let you know what's going on.
Okay, come on up. It's a good time. We have a nice party Saturday night at the end of it. Like Pogie said, watch your newsletter and see what they come up with for work for us. June 20th through the 23rd is our summer Hummer. So make plans for that. Get your vacation days in. Does anybody know what the bands are yet? I don't see Andy here. For the summer Hummer, do we know what the band list is yet? Anybody knows?
Yeah. Lisa does.
Lisa?
Thursday night is the Derailers. Friday night is Bobby Evans and Rat's Ass. And Saturday night is Oil Can Harry.
Okay, sounds good. Everybody hear that? All right, very good. So make your plans for the summer Hummer. On the 50-50 raffle today, we have 2 passes to the summer Hummer to give away, so make sure you get your 50-50 raffle tickets. February, upcoming meetings for Region 4A. There will be no meeting in February, as will all be at officer training. March 9th will be at Bakerville Sports Bar. April 13th at the Southway Pub and Grub. So Region 4A folks, that's changed from the postcards I handed out because of the pool and dart tournament. This time I'd like to do some thank yous. I'd like to thank the Eagles Club of Marshfield for hosting us in the lunch, and the cinnamon rolls are excellent and everything. Thanks to Rich. Rich has done everything he can to make us comfortable here and set us up the way we like it. Thanks to Hugh and Abraham for paying for the hall. They took care of that. My Region 4A members for putting together the baskets and all the help they gave me. Nuts Deep too for running a shuttle bus today. It's a free shuttle bus to and from Nuts Deep and your hotel and so on and from here. So thanks to them and thanks to Jerry Angevik. Let's see where Jerry's at. For arranging that, he does Let's Ride TV and he advertises in their newsletter. He's got the top half of page 3. Also like to thank Tracy Stanek and Preferred Brands in Lake Delton. They did all our event posters for free, so really appreciate that. But since then Preferred Brands has been bought out, so I'm not sure who's there, but anyway, they did it at the time, so thank you to them. Also like to thank my wife Nora. Did a lot of work for me. I always volunteer for stuff and she does all the work. I come up with ideas and she ends up doing all the work, so again, thank you, honey. And also want to thank Pam and Dave and Ron for putting this all together, all the hours and hours of work they put into it. And one other thing I got a quotable quote here. There are 2 primary choices in life. Accept conditions as they are, or accept the responsibility for changing them. Okay? With that, I'd like to bring up Chubby. Chubby will tell us where we're at right now for ABATE, and we'll go from there. One housekeeping thing, at lunch, we'll break a lunch break at 1 o'clock. There'll be 2 buffet lines, so if y'all should have that already paid for it, at $6.50. So if you don't have an L on your hand there, please see the guys in the back there. Pay for lunch. We'll be selling raffle tickets throughout the day. They're $1 a piece, 6 for $5, or 30 for $20. So buy your raffle tickets early and often. We've got some awesome prizes here, lots of gift certificates and everything. The girls will be coming throughout the crowd, throughout the deal here. So without further ado, Dave, Chubby Charles.
That was a perfect quote to end him and start me, I guess, because really isn't that what we're all about? We're all about affecting change. ABATE, since its inception, was formed to affect change, and we continue to do so. I'm really, no, you stole something from me, Ron. Yep, that's it.
You wrote those 10 minutes?
This is me. This is how I do it. And if you know Dave Zine, you know that I followed his ways. Mine is just on a bigger sheet. He uses a little scratch card, right? Well, I really appreciate being invited here today. I want to thank Ron and Nona from 4A for putting this on. This has got to be one of the bigger meetings they've had here. I haven't been to one in quite a while. I know I do try to get around the state, and this is really cool that everybody came out for this. Glad to see some board members here. Glad to see like all my old family here. This is everybody. I'm very interested to see what everybody has to say about the beginning of ABATE. If anybody knows me, you know I've only been around, I think, 14 years now. Augie, Pollock, Gator, they got me going in Region 1H all that long ago, and it's been quite the ride. One thing, history is a big thing to me. When I started in PR and started to ask some more questions, how did ABATE get started? What's it about now? I remember when I first started, I went to the first ever land warming when we bought our land, and I got a chance to talk to Twit, who I didn't know at the time, and I'm like, is ABATE like an exclusive thing? Like we don't want anybody that's really not a real biker, doesn't really believe hard? No, we want everybody. He says, are you kidding? But that's what I saw at the time. And looking at our history, it's dedicated people involved in their rights. And you don't see that all over. I go to a lot of bike events. I live in the Milwaukee area. So there is something going on. There's 6 things going on every weekend by me. And it's different to see different people. I'm a people watcher. It's different to see what people have to say and what their thoughts are driven by and how they feel about riding. Is it a sport to them? Is it a lifestyle? Is it something they're willing to give up? And unfortunately, I think more and more I see people willing to give up those rights. It's just a motorcycle. What do you mean? It's a means of transportation, right? I don't know about them, but to me, it's a lifestyle. It is what I do. It is what saves me. When I want to scream and shout out loud, I get on a bike and go take a ride. And I probably do some screaming, and I'm sure everybody I pass on the road is thinking I'm crazy, but it winds me down. So I don't ramble on to other things. Where did ABATE start and where did it come from? We're going to learn the beginnings of ABATE, and from what Pan told me, it's not just the beginning of ABATE of Wisconsin like he's done before. It's all the way back to the beginnings of motorcycle rights in this country and how they've developed. And I think it's good to tie those things in, because if you've been in Wisconsin for some time, you know that we're different than other motorcycle rights organizations in the United States. ABATE of Wisconsin is ABATE of Wisconsin. I pretty well hope all of you know that, but we're not connected to ABATE Illinois, ABATE Indiana, ABATE of Minnesota, ABATE of Michigan. The only thing that ties us is the name ABATE. The acronyms are even different. I'm very proud that we're a brotherhood against totalitarian enactments. I want to make sure we keep towards motorcycles. I know Pan always tries to drift me away from motorcycle stuff. It's totalitarian, we need to fight that. Well, yeah, but we're bikers, we're going to stick with that stuff. We have come a long way. If we were just for fighting political issues, would we all still be here? You know, who's to say? We do a lot more. We developed a motorcycle education program, which is huge. It's a great way. I don't know how many of you have taken an experienced rider course. That's now changed. I think it's called something else now, but ABATE offers it for free to its members. It's something worthwhile to do. Share the road. Ron talked about share the road and how we need instructors. It is one of the single most important things we do to save lives on our roadways is to teach student drivers and other organizations, I'm sure they could have a thing at the Eagles Club here too, how to look twice. What does look twice, save a life mean? You can see a billboard and wonder all you want, but now not only do we have to put the billboards out, we have to explain to people what that means, and we do need help doing that. Impaired riding program. Although we started an impaired riding program about 6 years ago, it doesn't look like it's like a big takeoff. How many events do you go to that have some hotel right down the road with a shuttle going to it? They have camping at it. There's non-drinking options. I'm not a drinker. I as much as people think I am just by the way I talk, I'm not a drinker, but when I go out, I like to know that I have that option. I think all our members, we can be smart and say, you know, don't get drunk and ride. Well, that's cool, but it should be up to you. I don't need extra laws. I don't need lower limits. I want it to be up to me, but that's something that we've been for. Right-of-way violation follow-up. $83 fine for the death of a brother is nothing I ever want to see. It happened to me. I'm sure everybody in this room has stories. We work to change that, and we're still working to follow court cases and make sure. There's a lot of laws on the books. I think if you follow the news, you see of all the things going on these days, and there's somebody who wants to make a new law. We can't let that happen. If we just make this law, it'll go. Well, that's been happening to us for years. I think it's what we have to do is get people to follow up on these laws. District attorneys, judges, we need to pressure them. Just like we pressure our legislators, we need to make sure they take these laws into effect. They really act by them. Don't let this guy off. He killed my buddy. I realize he didn't look and he had every excuse in the book, but there's a problem here. And I think all of us have done a good job of supporting that. But those things are what differs us maybe from the early years. I think maybe years ago we did those things without developing programs for it. But as we stepped into the new millennium, we're a stronger organization. We're a much more organized organization. We're very professional. I'm proud to lead our organization currently and lead it into the next age of being professional, having a strategic plan, having a look for the future. We have our own land now. How are we going to develop that? We've got a great officer structure in place. It was neat to see Vicki before mention bringing motorcycle trauma best practices, that she wants to actually bring that to our legislative committee, so we need to push that at our lobby day. What she did here is really what she should be doing at any meeting in the state. Bringing that up to our members. Our members should bring it up to their district directors. Our district directors should be shouting at me at board meeting. We need this. Dave Blair needs to see this. Why do we not all know about it? I've actually known about it for years, as much as my fault as anybody's for not following up. But your thoughts and comments are what runs this organization. What you have to say does matter. There's a whole list in the back of the news, and I should have brought one up here, that has everybody's number, everybody's email address. I would appreciate it if you don't just blanket it, try to be specific to who the question is to, but we're here to work for you. That's what we all volunteer for. With that, I want to show off some stuff, because this is the only retro item I own. That Bubba Stanton gave this to me last year. Yeah, did you see this shirt yet?
Hey.
And I know it's probably a little rough for some of the guys now. What's it, thanks, Bubba. It fits, because everybody's just got one hole. But I wore my only retro thing today.
That was from Botsy, that's welding.
I'm pulling it. I didn't even think about that. I I hope that we can all kick back together. I very much look forward to seeing what my good friend Pan and Dave Zine have to say. I look forward to seeing something I didn't know. And let's all talk about it again. One thing I do want to bring up is I know everybody's going to want to jump out of their seats. I can specifically see some people that I know are loud with questions and want to say something. By all means, we're going to be able to speak at some time and add some input, and I'm not against heckling the speakers at all. I think that's part of it. But if you could hold any questions, I think if we get started during this, if I know Pan, you think I talk a lot? The two guys following me taught me everything, let me tell you. They're going to go on. So the less we antagonize them to go on, if we save our questions for the end, I don't know if you got something to write on. I guess everybody has an agenda. Flip it over, scribble some notes. If we can kind of save questions for later, it'll make this thing go a little smoother. And again, I want to thank Ron Nona of Region 4A for organizing this. It's been really cool. I like being up here. I stayed at a really cool motel last night that really brought, I wish I could find that when I'm out on the road. It was cool. So I'm enjoying the hospitality. I'll be around tonight. And hopefully some of you can attend our board meeting at the Holiday Inn tomorrow. Thanks everybody for coming, and I'll slide this into somebody else. Thank you.
Here.
Hey, your turn, huh? Hey, you betcha.
Hey, David.
Okay, it's proper protocol. It's proper protocol that at the beginning of a major meeting in the United States of America, that if there is present the recipient of the highest award for valor that there is in our military, that's a Congressional Medal of Honor, that there'll be a standing ovation and that person be brought up to the front. Gary Wetzel, would you please come up front? A fighter of a fighter's fighter. Congressional Medal of Honor recipient up front. The highest award for heroism. By the way, Gary was instrumental in fighting for Vietnam vets and was helping us with the helmet law repeal and did all kinds of things simultaneously. I'm going to give it just a couple minutes, Gary.
Thank you. Please sit down. Of course, David and I go back so many years. We used to call ourselves lean and mean. Now we're just fat and sassy. But I get a kick out of when I'm on my bike in the summer months and you're at a stop and go light. Somebody looks over at you and, how are you riding that bike? I look at him and I say, man, God, why? But my bike isn't any different than anybody else's. I more or less helped redesign my arm so I could pull my clutch in and out. And I not only did it for me, but I look at different magazines I've been into and throughout the world, and if somebody's reading the article and looking at me and saying, well, if Gary can do it, maybe I can do it. And I guess that's what we're all about, trying to help folks out or trying to make better things for them or show them how things can be done. And that's why we're called a brotherhood. It's unique. It's what you feel in your heart. And it's nothing nobody can take away. And I'm flattered that Dave introduced me and I stand before you as a recognized war hero, but I gotta tell you, when there's times when I wear that blue ribbon around my neck, I work for everybody, so I'm just a soldier doing a job, And here I am. God bless America. God bless you.
Flag holders up front, get the flag up. While they're getting the flags up, Tubby, wonderful job. ABATE of Wisconsin, terrific job. I'm just going to give a little thing about the flags, then we're going to get going. You got to know the history and the destiny that you have. I can't believe all the things I've learned just looking over there, and I would encourage everybody to go over there and look and see what Gary was doing in the late 70s, and the middle 70s, and the early 80s. And Tony, I mean, all of you have done so much, and you don't have to be a war hero, you don't have to be a veteran, but to be a patriot. And for those younger ones here, I mean, you're carrying a torch, and you're about to learn some things that are unbelievable. And I guarantee you the hair in the back of your neck's going to raise a little bit, a few times today. I need some more people up here, a couple more volunteers. Come on, up front, please. There's one big one right there. Come on. We're going to talk about flags, patriotism. We are under cultural warfare right now. And the Association of Brotherhood Against Totalitarian Enactments, since its inception, almost, what, 39 years ago. 39 years ago. There's a letter back there, a 6-page letter from Dick Smith, president of the Better Biker Association, 6 pages, a handwritten, that says, he tells me that the average club, the average motorcycle organization lasts 2.5 years. You have been around 39. Thanks for carrying the torch. Thanks for carrying the legacy. Ladies and gentlemen, the new United States Flag Code of 1974 says that our United States flag is a living thing. It has a spiritual transcendence that connects all those who have ever lived, loved, honored, and cherished freedom even before the great American Revolutionary War. It has a spiritual transcendence that brought our country from disunity to defiance of the United States through that flag. That's our first flag, the Don't Tread on Me flag. Our first flag. And a tattered flag. Let's talk about a tattered flag for a minute. My flags can be tattered and torn. To God's greater glory, we do adorn. Oh, all along trails traveled, threads of our being do lie. Each is one, and each together, praising God, high in the sky. Think of all the threads of your being, of all the places you've been, and all the places you're going to go, how you've influenced other people. That is a flag that brought us from disunity into defiance in the United States of America. The first flag of our country. The first flag to fly on a naval ship. The first flag of the United States Marine Corps. 3.5 years ago, some of our government officials said that if you fly that flag, you are considered a potential government subversive subject to immediate search and seizure without a search warrant. That is the first flag of our country, by the way, that flies in all United States naval ships at sea on international waters. And I would like everyone to sign these flags. They're going to be presented to somebody at the end of today. And if you want to say a little quote, you can. If you want to say something about patriotism. And just one last word about patriotism, about cultural warfare. Who could have believed in the mid-70s, the late 70s, when the ABATE started in 1974? Who could have believed that the Better Biker Association would go down? And when you read some of the personal letters here, you'll see why. There was animosity, there was jealousy, there was greed, and there wasn't the brotherhood. But what's happened since those times is that we've taken on so many good challenges. The association of our souls is so deep. There's a lot of us that aren't here. They're gone. Their spiritual transcendence. How many do you know, Bubba, that aren't here? How many do you know that aren't here, Marlene? Hey, preacher. They're not here. Their souls and their spirits are. And with that, I would like everyone to stand and join me in pledging allegiance to the flag of the United States. and thinking of all those souls and spirits, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Just one final word. You can be seated. The cultural warfare going on, 60 seconds here, is unbelievable. Red-blooded American patriots are being demonized. It used to be that our enemies, and they still are, terrorists across the ocean, but some of the terrorists can be amongst our own ranks, in our own society, the mentally unstable, the people that have some problems with drugs or alcohol. God bless them. If there's any of them out there, this is the right place to be. This is the right place to be. And if you want to be any place, if you're a terrorist, if you want to do some shootings in schools, this is the right place to be among ABATE members. Hey, that's the right place. Because you can expect an all-out attack on all fronts, with both barrels blazing even before the crack of dawn. Expect no quarter given to court, because you, Mr. Terrorist, Mr. Mentally Unstable Derelict, you are the hunted, we are the hunter, and we are hungry. We are not going to let go of our roots, love of this country. God bless each and every one of you. Thank you.
Here you go, my technical stuff here lined up. All right. All right, Dave? Welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming today. Hopefully you're going to learn something today. And I will. Before I start this off, I want to dedicate today's program to my good friend Bill Gannon. Some of you may know who he is or who he was, but he was one of the original freedom fighters from Massachusetts. He helped found the MMA, not the Modified Motorcycle Association, the Massachusetts Motorcycle Association. He was an early founding member and supporter of the MRF, helped get the MRF off the ground too. And he was my bolt director for Massachusetts. He was a real true freedom fighter, true American. He passed away Christmas Eve, so he's going to be really missed by all of us guys that remember him. But he was an original. He was definitely an original. By 2003, 20 countries in Europe had helmet laws. And yet in America, only half the states have helmet laws. So why is that? How have we been able to fend off a paternalistic government that's been trying to encroach on us all this time? There was a recent magazine article that came out talking about this phenomenon. They thought it was absolutely unique that there's so many more car drivers than there are motorcyclists. And yet, guess what? They're forced to put their seatbelts on, and we can ride, at least in 20 states, freedom of choice. So they were wondering about this, and you wrote a quite extensive article. I've got it here if people want to see it a little bit later. But we talk about trying to influence legislators and trying to push legislators into a direction or ask for certain legislation to be published or printed and become law. This is what this guy had to say, and I think this strikes a really good note as to who we are and what we're doing. Resistance to the helmet laws wasn't easy. It hasn't necessarily involved convincing legislators to do anything but the motorcyclist's determination. Politicians didn't have to understand their passion to respect it, and therein lies the lesson for the world's busybodies and petty tyrants, because that's what we wanted to be left alone. So in order for us to understand who we are, what we are, and why we are, we have to go back to figure out why are we even here? what brought us all together. I know a lot of us guys back in the 70s were really pissed off at government, but you know what? Government did the biggest favor they could ever do to us. They got us organized. They gave us a reason to organize. Otherwise, we wouldn't be together. There wouldn't be ABATE today. But people look at the Safety Act of 1966 and they say, well, that's where we got our helmet law from. I think you have to go all the way back to 1935 if you want to find out where helmet laws came from. I remember to click my clicker. T.E. Lawrence, you know who that is? That's Lawrence of Arabia. 1935, he had a serious motorcycle crash after World War I. Riding around, had serious head injuries, and there was a neurosurgeon that treated him, English neurosurgeon, by the name of Dr. Hugh Carnes. And the head injuries were pretty horrific. The bike that Lawrence was riding at the time of his crash was his Pro Superior. It was given to him by George Bernard Shaw, the English playwright. Nice looking bike, isn't it? And those things would go over about 110 miles an hour. Cairns never forgot about that horrific motorcycle accident. And when World War II started up, he was involved in World War II in the British Army. And thinking back about that terrific head injury that Lawrence had, he helped push a mandate that all English motorcycle dispatch riders had to wear a helmet. You guys were running between the lines carrying messages and things. They had to wear helmets because of Cairns pushing. After World War II was over with, the British government enacted the first helmet standards. Nobody else had helmet standards before. The British government came forward and they pushed for helmet standards, saying what a helmet is, what a helmet has to do, all of this stuff. And that was the beginning of why we have a helmet law coming up in 1966. I'm going to get to that. But
What do you have to say? Bricks?
the British, of course. That's why we had a revolution, to get away from those guys. But anyhow, it was pretty interesting because after World War II, something started happening. These vets are returning home from the war, pent up with a lot of energy, a lot of aggression. They witnessed things that were absolutely horrific, things that are beyond imagination. Some of the things they've seen are beyond imagination. We can't imagine what they saw. And they came back to this country, and they wanted to work out some of this stuff. They didn't fit back into society necessarily, not all of them. They still had all this energy going. They were looking for an avenue of escape, if you want to call it that. They were tired of the regimentation of service, uniform, everybody looked the same, everybody had the same haircut, everybody talked the same. They were back to this country, they wanted to kick loose and burn off some steam. So they started something that was the beginning of the outlaw masculine social identity. Think about that. The outlaw masculine social identity. And key to that was the motorcycle. They didn't want to drive around in a family station wagon when they came back. They wanted to drive around in high-powered machines. They wanted to go fast. They were taking risks. For the last 3 or 4 years, they were risking their lives every day. They wanted to come back and they wanted to still have that risk factor. They didn't fit into the work cleavers of the time. They didn't like the pressed pants and the clean button-down shirts. And mom cleaver sitting in the kitchen preparing supper in a ball, in an evening dress with her little apron on. That wasn't their style. They liked greasy blue jeans and dirty t-shirts. That's what they wanted to do. They started seeking other company. They started finding other guys that had the same passion and the same desire to go out and have some fun, blow off some steam after the war. So those motorcycle clubs started forming. Motorcycle clubs aren't new. They've been around since the 1920s, but nothing like what was starting to develop after World War II. This is a whole different ballgame. The AMA, founded in 1924, is mainly a social and a race organization. And if you guys know what the AMA looked like back in the 60s and 70s, they wore their little white denims and they had their little funny little hats on and stuff. That's not what these guys wanted. They were used to that regiment. They wanted to get away from that. Everybody looked the same, everybody dressed clean and everything, and have to act properly. They wanted to go out and let some steam off. So they started showing up at some of the AMA races and sanctioned events. The only trouble was they weren't sanctioned. And it shocked the AMA people to see guys on motorcycles drinking beer and then getting on their motorcycle and racing around, stopping and drinking a few more beers and then racing around some more, doing burnouts. going on the track when they have a sanctioned race and racing around the track, chasing them off, trying to wave them off the track. And it started getting to the point where it was really making the AMA nervous because people were starting to get afraid of these guys. They're kind of rowdy. So they wanted to distance themselves from them and try to protect the attendance at their events. So that's when the AMA claimed that, hey, 99% of motorcyclists are good, decent people. There's only that 1%. Now, you've all heard this story. There's only that 1% of those guys out there that are troublemakers and malcontents. And they thought, well, let's shame these guys and they'd go away. That didn't happen. In fact, I went too far here? In fact, they said, well, what were that 1% badge was a badge of honor. Because what they, in their mind, they said, I'm a 1%er. I'm a one of 1%. To them, that was something that was really rare. That was like, hey, that's cool. There's only 1% of us out there, so that kind of made them feel like they were elite. And they wore that kind of as a badge of honor. And as the AMA kept saying there's 99% of these guys are good motorcyclists, these are the bad 1% bikers, that's real important because they took that on also. They were happy and proud to be called bikers because that further separated them from the AMA who were called themselves the motorcyclists. So we got something going on here that was really important because the motorcycle rights movement grew out of that outlaw masculine social identity. Because you're going to learn that the movement started, the people who started going after the government, started redressing government and fighting these mandates, was the outlaw masculine motorcycle society. It wasn't the AMA, to a point they did it, but nothing like was seen by these guys coming home from World War II. Are you guys outlaws? Outlaw bikers? When I say outlaws, I'm not talking about the motorcycle club, I'm talking about outlaw motorcycle culture. If you resist laws, if you disobey laws because you think they're unjust, if you refuse to follow certain rules and regulations, if you don't fit into the norm, but society says these are the rules that you have to abide by, you're an outlaw, whether you realize it or not. This is what Tom Robbins said about outlaw motorcyclists, the outlaw motorcycle culture. People who overturn laws in order to replace them with their own laws are victims. Outlaws, however, live beyond the law. They don't really live beyond the letter of the law, they live beyond the spirit of the law. In a sense, then, they live beyond society. Think about that. I love the trite mythos of the outlaw. I love the self-conscious romanticism of the outlaw. I love the black wardrobe of the outlaw. I love the face smile of the outlaw. I love the pad of the outlaw and the beams of the outlaw. I love the way respectable men sneer when they say outlaw. And I love the way young women palpitate when they say outlaw. If you don't want to be an outlaw biker, why are you dressed like? Take a look around this room. Look what you look like. This is where that motorcycle culture was coming from. And it's really important again because this is the people that started our movement. They didn't know they were doing it, but they started it. That's a Hell's Angel and Outlaw on Milwaukee Lakefront. It's Zipco and Funny Sunny. That's Milwaukee, that's Bradford Beach behind. Zipco actually was a friend of mine. I didn't know Funny Sunny. So, we got this identity now going, this outlaw culture, these returning vets that don't quite fit into the society norm. They look a little bit different than everybody. They're scaring people. They weren't really going out and really hurting anybody. They were just going out and having fun. They're kind of rowdy at a time. But Hollywood decided, you know what, we got to pick on this because this is a new generation coming up. There's a new culture, and Hollywood looks for those kinds of things. So they started exploiting that culture by making movies. And lots and lots of B movies, but one everybody knows about is the Wild Ones. That was Hollywood's depiction or idea of what outlaw bikers were like. And that was based on a July 4th, 1947 Hollister incident. We all know there wasn't a riot then. It was all a bunch of guys, these guys that I was talking about, that like to burn up and down the street, make a bunch of noise, drink a lot of beers, and ride their bikes again. That was shocking the straight citizens and the AMA types. But it didn't really hurt anybody. That famous picture, that big fat guy sitting on a Harley with all the broken beer bottles, that was a staged photograph. San Francisco Chronicle reporter staged that. But the rank and file citizens in 1947, and 48, and 49, and 50, they never even came in contact with an outlaw biker. Never saw one. Never heard one. What they relied upon is Life magazine's picture that was a staged photograph, and movies like The Wild One. That's what they relied on, who these bikers were. That's where they were getting their information. It's really funny when you think about Hollywood, how they screw everything up. Who was the lead outlaw in The Wild One? Marlon Brando. Guy with clean jeans, nice little hat, and he rode a Triumph. The outlaw in that picture was Lee Marvin, riding a nuthead with the dirty jeans and a shirt that looks like this. That was the outlaw, but Hollywood didn't know that. They couldn't figure it out. And Harley Davidson started to figure it out. It took them a long time. But Harley Davidson, after 20, 30 years, they started figuring out who was buying their motorcycles. It wasn't the guy with the crew cut and the penny loafers in their ads. It was guys with facial hair and long hair. So they started putting their ads out with guys, none of them looked like any of us, but at least they had a little bit longer hair. Kind of like a Troy Donahue style, I guess, if you want to call it that. And a little bit of whiskers. So they thought that was it. This is who's buying our motorcycles. We have to appeal to the crowd that's spending money on us. And they started their little marketing logo, and the legend lives on. Harley Davidson never created any legend. It was the people who rode their motorcycles that created the legend. Just like after World War II vets returned home, we jump forward now to the 60s, and we have Vietnam vets returning home. Same mindset, same group of young men coming back from a horrific war, wanting to cut loose, again looking for like company, started forming war clubs. But now we're getting into the real heavy-duty motorcycle club culture. These guys were ready to go out and party and have fun. And not like the World War II veterans, there wasn't parades and banners flying when the boats docked, welcoming them home. They didn't get welcomed home. They didn't fit in. Just like the World War II vets, they didn't fit in with their normal society. So they sought their own type again, their own kind, to go out and have fun. Right around that time, 1965, Ralph Nader came out with his Unsafe at Any Speed. It was a critique on the automobile industry. That was important because right after that, 1966, the Safety Act came out, the Highway Transportation Safety Act of 1966, and that's where the helmet mandates for this country came. That's where it came from. So all those standards that Britain developed for motorcycle helmets, Britain's standards were now invading America, just like the British music industry was invading America. But unlike the AMA, we weren't listening to Petula Clark and Herman's Hermits. We were listening to the Kinks, the Zombies, and the Rolling Stones. A further separation of who we were, our own identity. When I say we, I'm talking about the motorcycle culture, not ABATE. ABATE isn't even a thought yet in anybody's mind. Besides the helmet mandate, something also very important happened in the Safety Act that people don't talk about much, or didn't talk about back then. But it expanded the public health purview beyond infectious disease. What does that mean? That sounds just like what the CDC is doing right now, right? CDC all of a sudden is saying motorcycle accidents are an epidemic, and all of a sudden it's a disease. Motorcycle crash is a disease. Well, that purview, that expanded purview of that 1966 Safety Act dealt with prevention of disability and postponement of untimely death. What the hell does that mean? What that means is they were laying the groundwork for any court challenges. Because when these things started ending up in court, and they did soon after, 68, 69 were the first court challenges to the health law, they were using that expanded purview of health, public welfare, and public safety as a defense for the police power. It gave the police the power to enact and enforce those types of laws. That's why it became a medical issue, public health. At that time, only 3 states had helmet laws of some kind or another. After that Safety Act of 1966, it was mandatory for the whole country. In Wisconsin, I started riding in 1964. In Wisconsin, they didn't start enforcing it until 1968. I got pulled over one day in 68, and the guy said, "Where's your helmet?" The cop said, "Where's your helmet?" I'm looking around, I thought something fell off my bike. I said, "What helmet?" I didn't lose anything. He says, that's the law. We never saw it coming. We didn't even know about it. Very little bit about it. Maybe we weren't reading the papers enough in those days, I don't know. But we didn't know that it happened. So the entire country got these helmet laws except for 3 states. 3 states told the federal government to take a hike. California, Illinois, and Utah. And of course, they were facing loss of highway funding at that time. They said, if anybody doesn't enact the helmet law, we're going to withhold highway funds. Even with that, these 3 states said, ain't gonna work. We're not forcing our people to put helmets on. So the government said, well, we have to address this issue. So they targeted California. They went after California out of the 3 states. The reason was that California had the most motorcycle registrations at that time in the country, and it also had the highest fatality rate in the country. So they went after California really heavy. And guess who stood up and said, we ain't gonna do it? There you go. It was the outlaw motorcycle clubs. And at that time, the MMA, the Modified Motorcycle Association, was working under Ron Roloff and had a really heavy Hells Angels influence. The Modified Motorcycle Association, before the '66 Safety Act, was dealing with things like extended front ends and laws against, brakes in your neck and putting clip-ons or Z-bars or welded handlebars or A-painters. They were fighting all those restrictions on customizing, and guess who was at the front of the customization phase or craze at that time? West Coast Bikers, Oakland, and pretty much Hells Angels. And that's why MMA formed to fight those restrictions. Now, all of a sudden, they get thrown into the mix with the helmet law too. So now they got a lot of stuff to fight. Well, California resisted for a couple of years, more than a few years, but in 1973, some state legislators said, you know what, we're still facing loss of highway funds, which is kind of ironic because they hadn't lost a penny up to this point. But some state legislator got nervous and he says, we're going to lose all this money. And between the 3 states at this time, they were facing a loss of about $80 million in highway funds, although they never, like I said, never lost a penny. But some guy, some crazy legislator said, you know what, I'm going to put a helmet bill in there. And he proposed a helmet law for California. Once the word came out that there was a public hearing scheduled for that helmet law, the Los Angeles Times came out with a front page article saying 500 Hells Angels are attending the hearing. Do you think that made that guy a little nervous? When the hearing actually came about, only about 100 bikers showed up. And we don't really know if any of them were even Hells Angels. But just 100 bikers. We know from Lobby Day, when you got 500 bikers in the Capitol, it looks like 1,000. 100 bikers probably look like 500. And if they look like us, they probably look like Hells Angels. So, oddly enough, this guy withdrew his bill. Didn't even have the public hearing. He says, never mind. That was our first clue. That was our first clue that combined resistance and a united front and activism worked. They scared the shit out of this guy. He pulled his bill back. Hey, this might work in some other states, So it was that outlaw bike culture again that was stepping up and leading the way with the other bikers following their lead. It's also the beginning of that whole, with the MMA and everything, was that whole thing about the custom bikes and the custom cars. And we had some alliances with the custom car industry at that time too. Now, the AMA actually was fighting this in 1968. They took a helmet case to the appellate court in Michigan, American Motorcycle Association versus the Department of State Police. Fought their helmet law. It wasn't a superior court, but it was an appellate court. And they based their arguments on Griswold versus Connecticut, which was promoting safety. They were arguing birth control. Griswold argued about birth control and women's rights to do what they wanted to do with their body. So they used that as an argument that motorcyclists should have the same right to make decisions that had only affected them. The state came up and said, hey, it's within the privilege of the state to promote public health and public safety and welfare, and that's why we should be able to enact this and enforce this helmet law. But oddly enough, the court came back and listened to what the court said. It said if that were true, then it would justify forcing car drivers to wear helmets and buckle up for protection. Boy, have things changed, huh? And we always said, if the majority of the injuries in car accidents were head injuries. That's why they pushed the seatbelts and then finally the airbags. But it was funny that the court said, we're not going to force people to put seatbelts on, so we're not going to force bikers to wear that. So the AMA won that one. But we didn't line up to join the AMA after that. Because we still didn't like the AMA. We didn't look like the AMA, we didn't sound like the AMA, and we didn't like the fact that the AMA was urging voluntary helmet use. We were sick of government telling us you had to put a helmet on. We were sick of media telling us you had to put a helmet on. The last group that we wanted to tell us to put a helmet on was another group of other riders. There was a lot of disdain and a lot of distrust for the AMA, and we didn't like them in those days, I'll tell you that right now. Between 1968 and 1970, 15 states challenged the helmet law in Superior Court. 15 states. Colorado, Hawaii, Louisiana, Missouri, Massachusetts, New Jersey, North Carolina, North Dakota, Ohio, Oregon, Tennessee, Texas, Vermont, Washington, and Wisconsin. Guess what the win-loss ratio was? Anybody got an idea? We lost every one of them. 15-0 for the government in Superior Court, Supreme Court. So we had 15 Supreme Courts that said you had to wear a helmet. We had one appellate court in Michigan that said you had to wear a helmet. And then Illinois came along in 1969, People versus Fry. And the Illinois Supreme Court also said that it was beyond the power of the government to force somebody to put a helmet on because it only affected the wearer and nobody else. So it was Illinois Supreme Court found that unconstitutional. In Wisconsin in 1969, did you know we had a case go to the Supreme Court? In 1969 in Wisconsin? And they lost. Guess who it was? Going back to this outlaw bike culture. It was the president of the Milwaukee Outlaws that was appealing the case that he lost in Dane County Circuit Court. It was appealed to the state Supreme Court. Pretty much the same arguments that all these other courts were using, but we lost that one. Our state court said it was within the scope of the police power to enforce that for the public good and the public welfare. So, 15-2, not very good odds. If you were living back then and everybody said we got to fight these helmet laws, and then you found out that 15 Supreme Courts found the law constitutional, only one found it constitutional and one appellate court found it constitutional, where do we go from here? Or do we even go anywhere? Should we even try? I mean, the Supreme Court's already said it's constitutional. What are we going to do? Well, what we did is we took the cue from the 500 Hells Angels that were going to show up at the hearing, and we took it to the streets. That's what we did. At this time, a new magazine popped up on the scene. I don't even think we even got it here, unless somebody stole it already. June 1971, Volume 1, Issue 1, Easy Riders.
Give me $20 for it.
Tell me, I just. Lou Kimsey started that magazine in 1971, and it took him 4 issues to realize that, hey, there's a problem here with the government mandate on helmets. Issue number 4, he proposed getting together and doing something about these helmet laws. And he said something that was really struck in a chord in our minds. He said, don't shout from rooftops or go as individuals or individual clubs to talk to your state legislators and ask for relief, because we don't have any weight, we don't have any power. We're too small of a group. He knew the MMA was working right there in California, but the MMA's main focus was custom laws, you know, although they were taking on the helmet law too. But there was a different type of biker. Those were the custom guys. They were more interested in their customization. We had the AMA fighting somewhat for repeal of helmet laws, but they were telling us, oh, but you should really wear a helmet. We didn't want to hear that. Like I said, we didn't look like them. So we needed our own organization. And that's what Lou Kimsey said too. We need an organization that's not the MMA and it's not the AMA. It's going to be something solely for the street rider. And so for a mere $3, you can send your $3 to California and you can become a member of the National Custom Cycle Association. Ever heard of that? NCCA? Turns out that there was another organization in California using the same acronym, had nothing to do with motorcycles, but they told Kimsey, you can't use NCCA, or we're going to sue you. We're using it. We have that incorporated already. So Kimsey thought about it and came out with the word ABATE. You can say ABATE or ABATE. I like to say ABATE because that's the acronym. ABATE is a word, means to abate something. But what a beautiful word. A brotherhood against totalitarian enactments. Sign me up, baby. After we signed up, we had to look up totalitarian in the dictionary to see what we were signing up for. But we had our organization now. We got something that we could relate to. Okay, his words really rang true. But don't shout from the rooftops, you gotta organize. So us guys in the Milwaukee area, in the east part of the state, we didn't know that there was already an organization. This is by the way, that's Basingas versus Carnes. That's the Supreme Court case, if you want to look it up and read it. It's pretty interesting reading. Same arguments of every other court. That shows you that how confusing and how much of an issue this is. That one court can read the same exact arguments and find it completely different, or make a different ruling on constitutionality. So that was a big deal for us. On each part of the state, there was a guy that started the Better Bikers Association, Wisconsin Better Bikers Association. Big Smith and his brother Bob Smith and the CC Riders. They worked out of Smith Brothers Cycles on Williamson Street. You know Smith's pinky shell? We're in the same model. I'll talk about that in a little while. Tell you what that's all about. There's only two of these floating around, I know. But we didn't know, unless you're in a club or lived in the Madison area, you probably didn't hear about the BBA. We didn't know much about them. We were looking for something to do though. We wanted to get involved, we wanted to get organized. We didn't join up with ABATE because at that time ABATE wasn't really a membership organization. You could send your $3 into California and they'd send you a little card, but that's what you got. A little card saying you're a member of ABATE. But there was no meetings, there was no ABATE. It was just, you got a card that said you belong to ABATE. Like I get those art cards in the mail all the time. I used to go to a bike shop on the north side of Milwaukee. He had two shops, this guy, one on the south side and one on the north side. Marty Petrosinski. Marty's Jam and Supplies, it was called. Or Petro's Jam and Supplies, PJS. And it's there that I met Jack Moss. I don't know if Jack, is Jack, are you here? No, we haven't heard of you, is there? Where is he? That's Jack Moss right there. That's Marty up here. Dog, Knucklehead Benny. He started something called the Federation of Concerned Motorcyclists out of Milwaukee, out of his bike shop, PJS. And Jack is the guy that got me involved in motorcycle rights. Because at that time, I was one of the guys that was shouting from the rooftops. We'd get together in the bike shops and bitch about the helmet law, but nothing much else. Jack said, hey, you should really support this federation. But the federation didn't get much support from the BBA, and Marty was having a hard time getting that going because he's trying to run two shops. Smith had the advantage that he was right there in Madison. He sent people right to the Capitol. He almost walked to the Capitol from his shop. Marty was having a hard time getting there, making phone calls, doing things. So he started to let that federation slip a little bit. And then Jack told me there was another organization starting up called the Concerned Motorcyclists of Wisconsin, the CMW. And a guy up in West Bend, Steve Elk, that ran a travel agency, was running those meetings. And he said a guy named John Barajas was the vice president of the CMW. Well, I don't know, I can't get up to West Bend every day, I'm working. I don't know if I can get up there or not. But he said, you really should meet these guys. And I learned that besides going up to West Bend to Steve's house for meetings, they were also having meetings at a place called Rich's Pit Stop on 57th and North. That was a block from my house. And Rich catered more to the British biker crowd. And that's where I met Billy Schertzel, who was on the CMW board. He had a beautiful aerial square Ford chopper that he rode. So I started meeting these guys, and they said, you got to go up there and meet John and Steve. You got to get up to the West Bend and meet those guys. So I finally got up there and met those guys, and when they found out I knew how to type, I became secretary. There you go. That was the start of my motorcycle rights career. That was 1972. That's an early CMW. We adopted this kind of a logo. Concerned Motorcyclists. got an airbag. That's a leader. It's like a 1975 logo, but that's the logo that we adapted for CMW. CMW, just like the Federation, didn't get a whole lot of respect from Smith and the BBA because while the BBA was building a lot of membership, and they had by this time probably about 40 clubs as charter members, CMW was just a handful of guys on like a committee, a steering committee. That's the way Steve wanted to keep it. So we didn't really represent much of a threat to government. We didn't seem that organized to Smith, so they kind of pretty much ignored us. Lou Kimsey at the magazine, like I said, there wasn't any real membership going on in the States then. But Lou Kimsey wanted one person in every state to step forward and say, hey, you're going to be the ABATE rep. And you take notes, tell us what's going on in your state. Is there any movement on the helmet laws or anything else that has to do with bike legislation? And send that information back to the magazine. And 3 months later, we'll print it. So there's a goofy little timeline. You've heard of the timeline for printing a magazine, about a 3-month timeline. The news wasn't really news. Everybody knew about it already. But Bob Vedder was the guy that stepped up and said, hey, I'll be the ABATE rep for Wisconsin. So he was the guy. He also sat on the board for CMW. He was one of the board members. He worked for Tandy Corporation, that leather company. He got shipped to Illinois. His job was, his particular job was moving to Illinois. He had to give up ABATE. So he said, does anybody want to step up and take over reporting to the magazine? Well, John and I had been talking to developing the guys, trying to say we need to build membership in CMW because nobody's taking this serious. We're not getting much done. We're sending letters. We're calling our legislators. But when the guy says, well, how big is your organization? Oh, there's 7 of us. Oh yeah, call me next week. I'll see what I can do. Right? So we weren't getting very far. So I said we need to build a CMW with the organization, just like the BBA. Or we could have just went to the BBA. But there's big personality clashes between Delk and Smith. They didn't get along. I don't think Smith wanted us in the BBA. So anyhow, John and I talked about it and he said, you know what? We're not getting anywhere with CMW. Let's take over ABATE, but let's build ABATE into a membership organization because other states were starting to do this now too. But we're one of the first. I mean, there's not many states that can claim they started in 1974 and they're still going. Illinois started sometime after us, but they folded up and got reorganized. We're one of the longest continuing running ABATE chapters in the country. So that's John Barajas on the left, and that's me on the right. When I saw the black hair, poor Vicky got a hold of me. And yeah, we burn helmets at the rallies, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But we started finding out something that was really, really unusual. We expected some resistance when we started ABATE. We thought people aren't going to want to just jump on the bandwagon and stuff, and we're going to get trouble from the cops because we're starting an organization. We're going to get trouble, heat from here. We're going to get heat from there. We got heat from someplace we never expected to get heat from other bikers. We had the BBA looking at us and saying, well, you guys are inconsequential. There's only a few of you. Because it's just like CMW, we started just with just a handful of guys, started to build membership. But we didn't have any doors open for us. We were kind of bouncing off of walls here for a while, trying to get people to talk to us. We knew that the key to getting a membership growth was the clubs. It happened in California. We saw who the Outlaw Motorcycle Club culture was the one that was spearheading the movement. We saw what the BBA was doing, enlisting all of the clubs, getting them on board. So we needed to talk to some of the clubs. Well, we found out that there was a whole bunch of clubs from Racine all the way up to Green Bay and over to Fort Atkinson that didn't belong to the BBA. So we said, well, let's go talk to those guys. It wasn't an easy task. We had a lot of doors shoved in our face at that time too, because in their mind we were just an extension of the BBA. So we were in a hard time getting these clubs to sit down with us and talk to us and find out who we were and what we were trying to do. In the meantime, we had the BBA ignoring us and not really assisting us or, encouraging us either. John had a mechanic, his mechanic in his shop. John had a shop too, Bizarre Cycles. You see a pattern starting here? See a pattern? Smith Brothers Cycle Shop starts the BBA. Petrosinski starts the Federation out of PGS Jamma Supplies. John Barajas had the cycle shop up there in North Fond du Lac, Bizarre Cycles. Rich's Pit Stop on 57th and North had a bike shop, had CMW meetings. Why start an organization and have to go chasing around the streets looking for bikers when you have a shop and they're coming to you? It was a natural. That was the best place to have to start your organization, because the bikers were coming to you. You didn't have to chase them down. Although we ended up having to chase a lot of guys down. We started talking to the clubs. Scotty at the time was, Scotty King was the president of the Zodiacs Motorcycle Club. And through him and through some other people, we started approaching some of these motorcycle clubs. One of my best friends, and I was hoping he'd be here today, was Denny Dortz. Denny Dortz, we call him Dortz. Denny knew everybody on the north side of Milwaukee and other parts of the state. He's probably the #1 PR guy we've ever had for ABATE. I'll wager right today that he signed up more people to ABATE than any single person. I mean, he pretty much single-handedly signed everybody up when we grew to about 1,000 members. It was mostly all through Denny. So through him and Scott King, we started approaching these clubs, and word came to us that the Drifters Motorcycle Club and the DC Eagles wanted to meet us up in Greenleaf, come to a meeting. So Denny and I and a couple other guys, I don't know, did you run that meeting, Paul? There was a bunch of us that went up to Greenleaf to meet these guys. And we looked like everybody in this room, right? Well, we walked into that room, this bar, a small bar, the Red Arrow Bar in Greenleaf, and it was filled with Drifters and DC Eagles. I've been around heavy-duty bikers for all my life. That was a scary crowd in that bar. And these guys, none of them were smiling when we walked in. But you know what? They were all smiling when we left. That's where I met Wolfman, that's where I met Frog. And we talked to those guys, and they were suspicious at first, but they heard what we had to say. They weren't just shoving us off to the side and saying, yeah, whatever. They were listening to us. And we told them that we've got a ton of bikers on the east side of the state that need to be organized and be part of the struggle. You guys all agree with what we're doing. You all want to get rid of the helmet law, but you're not joining the BBA for whatever personal, and at this time we didn't know what the problems were with the clubs yet. But for some reason they weren't joining the BBA. So you guys are just dead space out there. You're jumping and jumping around and you're shouting from the rooftops. You're not part of any solution. So they liked them. They opened the door for a bunch of other clubs for us. We started meeting all these other clubs. And Denny Dortz knew Ray Farner, who had this custom motorcycle show that travels through the Midwest. And Farner said, hey, I need guys for judges for my custom bike show. And it was a pretty substantial bike show. Traveled to Kansas City, St. Louis, Minneapolis, all around the Midwest. And so we volunteered to be judges for his bike show. In return, we got a free ABATE booth. That was the natural. Remember, bring the bikers to you. Don't chase the bikers, make them come to you. So now we had a nice big ABATE booth, and we could promote ABATE. And we got the judge bikes, got to get into the bike show for free, got free beer. Man, it was a natural. So we got to know a lot of people. I was welding at A.O. Smith at that time. And that's when I met at the Alibi Bar in Milwaukee, 33rd North. That's where I met a person who became a lifelong friend of mine. Jingles was an early member of the Outlaws Motorcycle Club. He heard about us, and he says, what's all this stuff with ABATE? Who are you guys? So I started telling him a little bit about what we were doing. And he liked the idea. So he started opening a few doors for us. They were always in the background. In fact, a lot of people don't know this, but those 75, 76, and 77 rallies, a lot of outlaws went to those rallies. The reason you didn't know they were there is because they didn't wear their colors, which I'm not supposed to talk about, because I don't like anybody knowing that, because they won't let me wear without their colors on. But what they told me was, if we wore our colors and showed up at a helmet rally, the media would focus right on us. They'd spot us, it'd be like a torch. They'd be right on us. And all of a sudden, the whole article would be about us and our history, and you would lose focus. You guys would take second fiddle to whatever your event was that was going on. They probably wouldn't even mention the helmet rally. They would just say a bunch of outlaws were in Madison. So they kept their colors off, which I thought was pretty pure. Pretty good stuff. Soon after that, we got in touch with the Valley Riders and her whole club up in the Fox River Valley joined us. Some of the clubs in the Fox River Valley, that's where we're really getting strongholds. Sheboygan, Green Bay, Appleton area, Monash area. But there's a few clubs that didn't join us because they belong to the BBA, and there were certain things being said about us now in the BBA newsletters that they were reading and agreeing to, or at least it's like the Life magazine of the guy who pulls on the bike. You know, that's their only view. That's Public's only conception of what happened in Hollister was a picture of that fat slob on a bike, with all beer cans around him, or beer bottles, and it was a staged photograph. But a lot of stuff that was being said about ABATE wasn't true. So the Magnetos and the Masters and the Ozaki Guzzlers didn't come on in with us. They watched us, but they didn't support us. And that's fine. I mean, they belong to the BBA. At least they were part of the solution. They weren't just sitting up. I mean, there was no animosity between us. We wanted you to join something because you can't be an individual, like Kimsey said. Don't be an individual because you don't have any weight. So we didn't seek them or try to change their minds about BBA. Hey, they're doing their thing. That's good. They're part of the fight. We were happy with that. Meanwhile, the Diablo Lobos, the Breakaways, the High Riders, and the Sin City Riders now came on board. And a lot of that had to do with the influence of the clubs in the southeast part of the state that's saying, hey, you gotta take a look at these guys, listen to what they're saying. So we started getting these clubs, we're tracking these clubs, and that was the key to the citizens. Right about that time, Smith started paying attention to us now. Before, he was kind of pretty much ignoring us, because we were just a small group. Now he's paying attention, because we're building really fast. But not only are we building individual members, we're attracting a lot of these clubs that he was calling derelict motorcycle clubs in his newsletter, which was causing a lot of problems. Now we were finding out some of the stuff that was going on between the BBA and the clubs, that friction that was going on. A lot of that had to do with what Smith was putting in the newsletter, and we talked about it quite a few times. One of the things that he criticized us about was that we didn't have any club guys in an office position in ABATE. And I know that was brought up years later at our board. In fact, recently, again, not too long ago, it was talked about. There was a reason for that. There was another time, another place. In the 70s, motorcycle clubs in Wisconsin didn't all get along. In fact, there was some pretty nasty stuff. There was some murders, a lot of fights, some stabbings, pretty nasty stuff going on. Those clubs didn't all get along. In Wisconsin today, we enjoy a pretty good relationship with all the clubs. Not a bad situation to be in, but it was a whole different time. And Lou Kimsey, he said, for ABATE to be effective, it has to absolutely remain neutral. As soon as you take a club member, a patch holder, and put them in a position of authority in your organization, either on a board or as a director or something, you just alienated a whole bunch of other clubs that don't particularly get along with that one club. Keith Ball, a lot of you know Keith Ball, Bandit. He was the first national director for ABATE in the magazine. He prospected for the Hells Angels. When he threw his card in for the Hells Angels, Lou Kimsey asked him to step down as national director, and he did. He didn't patch in for whatever reason, and about a year later, he came back. I've got personal letters from Keith where he's telling everybody, announcing that he's prospecting, he can no longer be national director. So that's an edict that came down from Lou Kimsey and from the beginnings, and the founder of ABATE, telling us don't have patch holders in there because you'll alienate other people. But still, we had that stigma. Smith was looking at our base, our membership base, and clubs that came into contact with BBA clubs, and there were some violent confrontations at some swap meets and other bike events. Those same clubs were showing up at ABATE events, and it was all harmony. Everything was cool. So if you're Dick Smith, what are you thinking? I don't think you're thinking that ABATEs were masters of negotiations and diplomacy. He was probably thinking those clubs that's who's running ABATE. That's who really is ABATE. And of course, the one club that got the most notoriety was the Outlaws. They were saying, join ABATE, and as soon as they get your address, you're going to get your motorcycle stolen. This is what we were dealing with back then. But even with that animosity and the problems between the clubs, there was never any problems at any of the rallies. There was always neutral ground in the rallies. But we were having a real problem with that. Outlaws were running ABATE because that was affecting membership. Our membership was growing. All of a sudden, it kind of went to a plateau because people were hearing that rumor. It's absolutely not true. I can tell you for a fact, and there's guys that are here that were early members of ABATE, that sat on an early board. The Outlaws never once asked us what we were doing, never asked us what we were up to, never told us what to do. They had no interest in us other than they were supporting what we were doing. And they would show up at some of our events and show support. But that was kind of a foreign thing to Smith. He couldn't quite understand that, but he was paying attention to us now. Another problem that Smith had, besides the fact that we didn't have club guys as officers, was that we weren't incorporated. We didn't incorporate until mid-1979 or so. And he said, well, if you're not incorporated, you don't exist. complained to the national ABATE in Sacramento that ABATE was doing this and doing that, and we weren't incorporated. And the national wrote back, and there's a newsletter right back there, right where Carolyn Kinters is standing, close to where she is. There's a BBA newsletter, and I have it underlined in their own newsletter, where Smith said that the national ABATE, when they talked to Smith, apologized for ABATE of Wisconsin. They apologized for our actions. And they said that while ABATE has the ABATE name in Wisconsin, we're not authorized, recognized, or certified to act as an ABATE organization. And guess what? That's absolutely true. Absolutely true. We weren't organized or recognized by the National ABATE in Sacramento. And I'll tell you about that in a minute. But we started growing. Despite all these distractions, all these problems, we started to grow. We started attracting all kinds of good people. Ray Ushan from Butler was one of our early board member. Used to put people up at his house before rallies. Bob Arndt was an early board member. He was also our pilot when we had our early board meetings up in Fond du Lac, because a lot of stuff was happening in Fond du Lac. He would fly me up there in a little Piper Cub from the Waukesha airplane. I felt like a what do you call it, an ambassador or a dignitary, flying into the airport in Fond du Lac, getting off the plane with Bob Arndt. And then Brillo or Lakes or somebody would pick me up with an old beat-up car with the fender flapping in the breeze and drive me to the meeting. Kind of burst the bubble a little bit, but it felt good flying there. Dave Brillo, Fond du Lac guy, really Fond du Lac guy, on board member. He's one of those guys behind the scenes like Brillo, sitting back there. They're always there for you, always working to do stuff for you. Porker was the guys in the chosen few. Look at these old pictures. I think that's Hogman right there. There's Buddy, Bozo, Porker, Loopy Neck. Is that Loopy Neck? Which man is that? Too small, that's too small.
Johnny, man.
I don't remember all those guys anymore. That's Stretch back there. But these guys were stepping up out of the woodwork, and these guys were real workers. Turtle was our first products director. We just almost lost Turtle a couple of weeks ago. And we almost pulled the plug on him. He was in intensive care. That's Kat Kleiber there. She was the national products person from Indiana. All our early patches and pins we were getting from ABATE of Indiana. They still do the products now for a lot of the regions. But Turtle was our first our products guy. Small all the same from Lena, Wisconsin, was our security guy at the bike shows. He was more scary than he really was. If you smiled, he'd really be scary. And Davey's here, became a director for us after being on the board for a long time. We're at the same bike. Ron, where are you? Where's Tick? Here, when you want to come up and real quick explain what it was like trying to get regions going there? At that time, ABATE was divided into 3 regions: Fond du Lac, Milwaukee, and then the whole Northwest. So I only had to deal with Milwaukee and Kenosha and Racine. He had, I don't know, like, what, 40 counties?
Yeah, it started out, I was a member of the 70s, but there was no connection up here, so I went down to Fond du Lac for a statewide meeting. And after the meeting, I took and walked up to the front, and Ann was there, and Doris, and I said, there's members up here, but they've got no representation. We don't know what's going on. Of course, Ann says, you want the job? I said, sure. He said, you got it. So that was the beginning. Okay.
Never raise your hand.
But it went good, and but there was a lot of resistance at first because there was still the same old air of what we were all about and all this stuff. But it got better and better towards the middle 80s. We were having a statewide party out at a location out at Arvin, and it went on for a few years out there. The guy gave us land. No questions asked. Didn't have to pay nothing or anything. It was a pretty big lot of acres. So we had a statewide party out there, which I could have never done without a lot of people like CC and Mo And all those people, we could never got that deterred for what we had, because we do some pretty big people. Then pretty soon we got more recognized, and we would have meetings in just about every bar everywhere, you know. And I guess it was just, like I say, a lot of what happened up here wasn't just me. It was the people that were behind me to begin with. And I guess that's the story right there, you know. But it's become something a lot more now. It's a totally different situation. Back then you had to, they didn't really work at it. Now people accept us a lot more. So, and like you said, with the better bikers, well, you can't even belong to this if you ever partied with the outlaw motorcycle. Things like this, you know. And it was just more than, it just wasn't right. So, but I guess that about takes care of it, man.
I was going through my archives trying to find footage and, background stuff, so I had kind of put some kind of a semblance of order to this program. I found a lot of letters between me and Ron, and a lot of references to him in our early newsletters. I was telling him before the program that it was really weird because it said Ron Leonard, slick. And the next time I say Ron Leonard, tick. And the next time I say Ron Leonard, would tick. And I go, who the hell is this guy? But we didn't take really good notes in those days. So I'm told that that some people want lunch and they have to pay for it. You guys want to take like about a 5-10 minute break, stretch it out a little bit. Now we're going to get into some of the meaty stuff.